Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. In today's very short episode, hopefully very short, because I got things to do tomorrow and that don't involve editing this podcast, but we're going to be talking about Spaceman. This is the new Adam Sandler movie that hit Netflix. That's one of his more serious movies, not like one of his comedies. And we're going to be talking about that. Plus, we have our On the Horizon segment. We're going to talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. And that's it. We're going to cover a few trailers, but nothing was really all that interesting, so we just kind of cut that segment for this week in the hopes of brevity for this episode. But anyways, my name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And let's get started with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon. On the horizon.
Okay, so on Sunday, March 10th, the 96th Annual Academy Awards air on ABC. So haven't really paid too terribly much attention to Academy Awards in a while. I've seen a few of the nominees, not too many of them, but a few of them. I'm not too terribly interested, probably not going to watch it. I'll just read about who won later.
Not really interested in the Academy Awards.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. On Thursday, March 14th, Girls 5 Eva comes to Netflix. So this is interesting because Girls 5 Eva is a Tina Fey produced show. And it's got that Tina Fey style like you'd get in like 30 Rock or Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. It's very funny, very quick, like constant joke after joke after joke. Great performers in it. But this was a Peacock series and it ran 2 seasons on Peacock and now it's a Netflix series. So it's coming to Netflix and both the original 2 seasons are coming to Netflix as well as a new 3rd season. And that is on Thursday, March 14th on Netflix. Also on Thursday, March 14th, but on Amazon, Invincible is returning for its second half of its 2nd season. We talked about the first half of the 1st season. You had a few complaints about it just because it really just wasn't going anywhere, like the pieces weren't coming together. And now we get the last of that season. We get the last episodes for that season, and hopefully everything comes together.
Yes, hopefully.
Last week we talked about a trailer for what I thought was a movie, but I guess it's a TV series called Chicken Nugget that's coming to Netflix that looks absolutely bonkers, involving a girl turning into a chicken nugget and her father and a guy who's attracted to her, but I guess it's like a one-sided relationship kind of thing, are like trying to like take care of her as a chicken nugget. We talked about this, I believe, last week, and it was a completely bonkers trailer, and that is coming on Friday, March 15th to Netflix. Also on Friday, March 15th, Manhunt is coming to Apple TV+. This is a limited series, and it's about the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Lincoln. So it's about that, like there was a huge manhunt that happened right after Lincoln's assassination that eventually ended with them killing John Wilkes Booth. And that miniseries coming to Apple TV+ on Friday, March 15th. Also on Friday, March 15th, Knox Goes Away is coming to theaters. This is a Michael Keaton movie that he actually directed. And it's about a guy who's got dementia and he's trying to do something for his son. He's trying to I guess his son's in trouble and he's trying to help his son out or something, but he's got dementia and he's like an old fixer, like a Mike Ehrmantraut type, but he's got dementia now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that's, it's Michael Keaton in the lead role, but it's also directed by Michael Keaton. Then, also on Friday, March 15th, the American Society of Magical Negroes is coming to theaters as well. I think we saw trailers. I don't know if we discussed the trailer, but I think we watched it and considered it at one point. But it's basically like a satirical movie about the whole, magical Negro trope. The idea of there's going to be a black guy and he's going to help a white person find their purpose in life or something. And
it's
basically playing on that trope and the ideas of it and turning it into an actual kind of social commentary about the need for that. So movie looks pretty funny and interesting, and that's coming to theaters on Friday, March 15th. And that is it for our On the Horizon segment. And we only have one other segment this week, and that is full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are going to be talking about Spaceman. This is the new Adam Sandler movie. It was written by Colby Day, based on the book Spaceman of Bohemia by Jaroslav Kalfar, and it was directed by Johan Renck, who was a director for Chernobyl and Breaking Bad. And yeah, so this is a more serious Adam Sandler movie. It's not in the vein of his real silly other Netflix shows.
This is drama. This is drama, Adam Sandler, which Adam Sandler can do drama incredibly well. So, Yeah,
I think we mentioned last week that when we talked about, it might have been before that like Adam Sandler kind of has like a unique career where he's got this kind of two-pronged career. There's like the comedic Adam Sandler movies, which are like really goofy and very, very lowbrow.
Yes.
Like, not trying to be smart at all. Just very dumb movies and those have pretty much gotten horrible, I think, as the years have gone on, because, the new ones that have been coming up to Netflix, like we're not getting classics like Billy Madison anymore. We're getting these like movies that seem to be just made as an excuse for like him to fly to Hawaii or something.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go to Hawaii with all my friends and hang out, and we'll just make a movie while we're there, and that'll foot the bill. And that kind of seems to be where Adam Sandler's comedies are these days. You're not really getting classics anymore in that sense. But he's got this whole other career as a dramatic actor in stuff like Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems, as in our recent one that's like super popular. This is Academy Award nominee Sandler, like this version of his career. And, yeah, so Spaceman falls into that category, and we saw a trailer for it. It looks really interesting. It has Sandler playing an astronaut, and he ends up communicating with some kind of alien life form that's kind of arachnid-esque, and just it's exploring kind of the traumas of his life and stuff. And we saw the trailer for it. We're like, okay, this looks interesting. Like, what is this? And now we've watched it, and so we're going to discuss this. I got to start off like I usually do and ask, Will, what did you think, broad strokes, of Spaceman?
That was interesting. That was a very interesting movie. It's got some fantastic visuals to it. I thought Adam Sandler put in a great performance. I thought Paul Dano was good as like the alien arachnid. I thought it was fine. It wasn't amazing or anything though. Like I wasn't blown away, but I mean,
yeah,
it was good.
I'm a little lukewarm on it. So my perspective of it is that I think it's very well directed. It's very well acted, and it's got some interesting aspects to it. I think I wasn't expecting, and I was kind of intrigued by the fact that it wasn't Adam Sandler was not playing an American astronaut. He's playing like a Czechoslovakian astronaut.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like an interesting wrinkle that I wasn't expecting. And it's not just like the touch of, oh, this is where I'm from instead of here. It's like that plays deeply into a lot of the themes of the movie, like it goes into the background about like his issues with his father and all that stuff is very much not like American in its construction,
I will say though, there is like
the space program and the counselor or the commissioner who is like kind of running the space program or the country or whatever, I don't know, played by Isabella Rossellini, is also like just very not like American space program.
I will say though, like there is like the cognitive dissonance in us because like they chose, so many productions do obviously, they chose to just like replace Zek with English, and so it's Adam Sandler speaking in English, and so it's hard not to like watching a movie not to think of him as American and
mentally associate him as being like a NASA astronaut than
the Zek cosmonaut. And so it's kind of like the movie has to constantly remind me what it's supposed to be like, rather than if he was speaking Zek the entire time with subtitles,
When did you
went,
catch on to it?
mentally. Yeah.
When did you catch on to it? Because it was a little weird watching it, because there's nothing overtly that states it, like, right from the beginning.
Right.
It's like about halfway through the movie that they straight out mention that it's like Czechoslovakia, like, unless I missed it. Like, they don't really mention it until like the middle of the movie that's but there's lots of context clues throughout it that it's not America. And it's like, this is weird. He's talking about his dad, and his dad was an informer for like the communist government. Like, wait, what? Like, what's going on here? This doesn't really make sense. This doesn't, and so is he supposed to be, an immigrant or something? But he has no accent. That's weird. And it's like, so there's like a little thing in the back of my head, like, itching, going like, what's going on here? Like, what is this? And then like, I think this is supposed to be like he's Russian or Czechoslovakian or something, like Eastern European. He's from a different country. And that ended up being the case. But it's just a weird touch.
Pretty early into the movie. I mean, the signs are there, like stuff isn't like written in English,
Yeah.
And stuff. And it's pretty clear that's not like NASA, but like it's...
There's a lot of visual cues too, just like the way things look, and like when they're like doing the meeting with the astronauts, like, is this stylized or is this not America? Like, this just doesn't look very like what you'd expect,
Right, yeah.
And yeah, so I also put the pieces together pretty early on, but I was just like, it's kind of weird that they didn't like preface this, that they just kind of went in, and it's like entire movies in English, Western cast with, an American lead, and no accents, nothing in the movie.
Yeah.
And then, but it's all a different country. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the right thing. Yeah, and so nobody's trying to put on an accent either.
I mean, people have accents, but it's like their own natural accents, like,
they're not trying to put on a Czechoslovakian accent.
His wife, played by Carey Mulligan, Carey Mulligan, she's like British, so like her British accent's there, and like Commissioner Tuma is played by Isabella Rossellini, and her natural accent is there, but they're not like putting on accents,
Yeah. So there's that kind of like, threw me a little bit. But I mean, that's just a minor thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just like an interesting choice, and I guess they're staying true to the book that this is based on, but at the same time, it's kind of like, why did you cast Adam Sandler? Why did you and he's a good dramatic actor, and he's great in this and stuff, but it's just, that's part of what causes that dissonance,
Right, yeah, exactly. It's kind of like he's miscast.
Yeah.
Even though, like, he's fantastic in this.
Yeah. It's just, I thought that was a little weird, and I think, like I said, I think the direction's great. I think the performances are great. I don't know. Like, I've never read the book this is based on, so I don't know if it's the book or if it's the adaptation of it, but I didn't really think the movie had all that much to say. Like, it kind of felt a little pretentious to me. Like, it was trying to be really deep and meaningful, and it had the visuals to be very deep and meaningful. It had the performances to be very deep and meaningful, but there really wasn't much substantive to the plot to really make me feel the weight of that.
The plot was like all about Jacob's relationship with his wife, which, when the movie starts is completely, falling apart. I know, it's interesting because, like, I don't know, because one of the things
with
is,
all
like,
the deeper topics they could have gotten into.
Yeah, well, they introduced, like, the alien, and the alien is kind of there, like, they do a good job making them, like, sympathetic character and stuff, but he's really there to just kind of be a plot device to kind of like, to reconcile Jacob with his relationship with his wife, right? Mm-hmm. To reconcile, like, with him, how everything went wrong.
It just kind of feels like a missed opportunity to do something deeper.
Yeah. We know, like, the alien itself, has an origin, had a life before that, but it's not concerned about that.
Well, I don't think that was even really all that necessary, but if you want to get into a kind of a deep existential moment between these two alien life forms that are interacting on the spaceship as they're investigating this phenomena, you don't even have to really go out there too much, but I just wish that the existential threat was more than a bad marriage. You know what I mean? Like, I thought the aspects about his father and his feelings of responsibility about that were much more interesting than the marriage aspect.
I was just kind of wondering why is this alien so interested in fixing this random man's relationship?
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. The alien had the curiosity of it, but why was he so interested in fixing the relationship rather than just understanding?
Right. Yeah. And that's what it's really about. It's one of those movies that's like, it uses the trappings of science fiction or fantasy, fantastic drama to talk about something more grounded and human, like our relation. Like, this is really about how we relate to each other, how Jacob relates to his wife. It's not really about outer space or an alien or like some, dust cloud.
Yeah.
It's not about that at the end of the day.
I'm fine with that structurally. I'm fine that it's about, that it's using this science fiction motif to drive a narrative that's more grounded. Like, that aspect I'm fine with. I just think the bad marriage aspect is kind of a boring choice.
I agree. Yeah.
You're gonna have this whole like thing about that. Make it something that's like really got a lot of trauma to it, a lot of meat to it. I mean, like I said, when they were talking about his hang-ups about his father, that was much more interesting, and it was barely in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, the idea of like the things about his father and how it influenced like his character and his traumas and his problems was a much more interesting aspect than his marriage not working. And yet it was so barely in there that like you never really got to plumb its depths.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like that's where I'm disappointed. I'm not disappointed that it wasn't more science fiction in the story. I'm disappointed that they didn't use that science fiction motif to explore a more interesting aspect of this character, which they touched on, but they didn't explore nearly enough to really make it exciting or super interesting, I think that the whole father-son relationship would have been more interesting. They touched on the fact that his wife had a miscarriage and was pregnant again. And so you could have had a through line about what it means to be a parent,
Yes.
like about how his father was to him and about how he would eventually be to his child. And that would have been more interesting. But that seems like it wasn't the emphasis at all. It was just about the marriage. And how many fucking movies have we seen about a bad marriage? Or about like somebody who can't open up to his partner and how it hurts the marriage? It's like, you don't really need a sci-fi motif to explore that,
Right.
We've seen it a dozen times. You could have explored much more fertile ground. I mean, they touched on it, but never explored much more fertile ground in the movie itself,
Yeah.
I wonder what the book is like. I'm not going to ever get around to reading it, but I wonder if the book touches more on like the whole of his life and all the things that make him who he is, including his father, including the fact that he's going to be having a child, including the miscarriage moment. I wonder if all of that stuff is a bigger part of the book, and that when they adapted it for a movie, they tried to just focus in on his relationship with his wife, and that's where the failing is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Also, like, another thing, like, I'm just kind of tired is like this whole motif where like a relationship is falling apart, and it's all because of the hang-ups of one and imperfections of one partner.
Yeah.
The other partner,
or it's all
is
one-sided. Like, the other person's clearly a saint,
Yeah,
they never trusted anything
like,
that they've ever done that's wrong,
Yeah, blatantly. Yeah, exactly. Like,
that makes it a little unrealistic because relationships are two-sided, and there's lots of complex issues that go into that. And when you make it all about one person doing something wrong, or not even necessarily doing something wrong, but just not being available.
One person being heavily flawed, and the implication is the other person is just not flawed in any way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is like, it's the plot of it's their choice to focus on the marriage. It's all those things that make it not work. Performances are great. I love the dialogue is great. Like I love the part where it has the flashback into the marriage, and like in one of the rough spots in the marriage, and the wife is referring to marriage as being like amputating a part of yourself. And then she says, like, I feel like I've amputated so much that there's nothing left to make room for all of his stuff. Like that's great dialogue. It was like a great scene that played out. It's just that they didn't really nail the weight of the actual like problem between them. It just felt like they weren't fully exploring what they should have. I don't know. It just feels like, to me, and like I said, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. It feels like maybe this was kind of maybe miswritten for screen. Like, it feels like all the pieces are there for something better, and they just didn't come together in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think the strong points are the visuals and the performances, especially via Adam Sandler and even Paul Dano. The way Paul Dano, it's only it's only voice acting, but the way he brings this creature to life is kind of, he really like makes it with his voice, makes it empathetic, and you do get attached to it. It is sad the moment that the spider dies, at the end there.
Yeah.
That is a very, very sad moment. So, I mean,
Paul Dano does a great performance because you empathize with the character and you empathize with his building relationship with Adam Sandler's character, but like the characters doesn't speak like in an emotional way. It's not like he's like, "Hey dude, how's things going?" Or so, it's like he speaks very alien. He speaks in a very like clinical way.
Right.
He speaks almost like how a therapist would. He's very calming. He's very relaxed. He's very like assuring, like he's very like assuring to Adam Sandler's character. You'll talk to him and like assure him, "Don't fear this. This is okay," or something like that. In a way that feels very much like you're in therapy or something. Like he's playing him like he's a therapist, but it's very kind of like distant and separated, but comforting in a way that's like kind of doesn't have like a natural human feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yet he still comes across sympathetic, and you still like grow attached to the character and his relationship.
Also, like I gotta say, like the animators here also share credit in that. I mean, the way like they animate like his eyes, they do a good job of like giving him expressions like with his eyes. If you pay attention to the way his pupils are dilating or whatever, like there's a lot of like expression in that, which goes along with like what he's saying. They did a fantastic job with that, I thought.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's also another thing where, like I said, with Paul Dano's role as the voice in it, how it's like a difficult performance because it's so understated, it's so disconnected, it's so, it's calming, but it's so distant at the same time that it's like hard to like imagine how you build sympathy from there, but he does,
Yeah.
In the same way the animators had a task of turning a vile creature that should be on the bottom of my shoe.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Into somebody that I care about,
And I think it was like intentional that they designed it to be something that you would find disgusting or fearful, right?
Yeah.
Instead of making like a cute like alien. That's an interesting choice because they made it something you would instantly. And I mean that's important because it's also important for Adam Sandler's character. Like he is instantly like repulsed by it, and like anybody would be.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the miniseries for or read Childhood's End?
I have not.
Okay, so Childhood's End is a book by Arthur C. Clarke, he's most known. He wrote like 2001.
Oh, we all know Arthur C. Clarke. You don't have to.
He's very famous, but he's also very famous for being very prescient about like technology growth and stuff, like knowing how things would go like decades before it happened. Not in every detail, obviously, but like in just he nailed certain timings for like space travel and things like that, like decades before they happened. He nailed like when they would and stuff. But anyways, one thing that was really interesting about Childhood's End is that the aliens, they don't show themselves for like a very long time because they basically look like demons. And they know that humans see them as like demons, so it's like an interesting aspect of the book that they can't reveal themselves until humanity's already comfortable with them. So they're there for like a generation before they ever reveal what they look like, just so everybody's comfortable with them and, it's just, I think that that's interesting, the idea of like something being, that would naturally have an appearance that would make us fearful or upset, and playing into that kind of an angle, I think is interesting. So I did, as you say, like that aspect of the character of Hanus, the spider alien.
Yeah, Hanus was great. But yeah, like overall, I thought the movie was interesting. It didn't like fully come together for me. I thought it was fine. Enjoyed it enough, but yeah, it's like, I felt like it could be better.
Yeah. It feels like a missed opportunity. It feels like there was something else there and they plumbed the wrong aspects, They went too much with the marriage and him trying to fix his marriage, and they didn't do enough with his father, and they didn't do enough with the whole idea of him having all these father issues and then also about to become a father. And it feels like there was so much fertile ground for them to explore that they didn't, and that they overly focused on the most basic and simple part of it, which was just he's emotionally unavailable for his marriage, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess that's pretty much it. So that'll be it for this full spoiler segment for our discussion of Spaceman and for this week's episode. Next week, we also don't know what we're doing. It's becoming a trend. We just don't have...
We don't know what we're doing.
Real set schedule stuff. We'll pick something else out in time for the podcast, but we haven't picked out yet what we're going to be talking about. But look forward to us having something to talk about, because we'll find something.
Oh, yeah.
So look forward to that next week. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at VoxelHero. You can check out our Facebook page, our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up a container story for any of the podcast episodes, scroll down to that last paragraph. You're going to find all of the relevant links to our RSS feed, our SoundCloud page, everything there that you need. It's all there. So just check that out. You can also subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts and Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast, as well as more content, including our old podcast, which ran for 300 episodes, so weekly set, is all available on our YouTube channel as well. So you can check all of that out. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.